Good morning. This is going out to our entire list, but I am speaking to you directly as if you have never enrolled in anything with us. You should enroll in the Closer in Seven challenge. Here's why. Let me talk for one split second about politics. Don't leave. There's a whole narrative that is being promoted by a lot of people who may or may not care very much about us, the people. And it's that we are so different from each other. Now that's a narrative. It's not the truth. There's that our goals are so different from each other. That's a narrative. It's not the truth. Goals that human beings have are almost universal across the world by people who've studied that. People they want health, they want good for the safety and well-being for their children. They want a world without war and savagery. Um, they want to pursue what they enjoy pursuing. This is across the planet. These are people who study goals. And if you were to ask that in America, you would see the same thing, that we are actually not that different. Our goals are not that different. But the narratives that are being promoted are uh, people in particular positions benefit from you not knowing how to shift your narrative. No, you're going to say, I know how to shift my narrative, Julie. Like, you don't, probably. It's a skill. It would be like me saying you don't know algebra and you going like, I know enough math. And I'm like, algebra is different from math. And you're going like, I don't need it. You probably do. You probably do. Narrative shifting is a skill. The Closer in Seven challenge was put together. Yes, the promise is that you will have noticeably warmer relationship with one person that will be the focus for your week, because we just want to keep it small. We want to keep it. We want to make this a no-brainer. So it's short. It's a little amount of time. It's a goal that is hard to, you got to admit, like, no, I don't want to be closer to somebody who's important to me. And I don't want to spend 10 minutes a day learning it. And I don't want to spend $7. Like, it's none of those things. It's probably more that you believe that you already know how to do narrative shifting. And I'm just going to ask you, how did you learn that? Because unless you specifically learned 9 steps to how you do that, you probably don't know how to do narrative shifting in a way that the narrative stays in place and the behaviors that are necessary to get a change you'd like can be built atop that narrative. It's not. How do I want to say this? It's not hard, but it's also not intuitive how to do this. And so that's what I mean. The odds are it would be a little like saying I know algebra. And if I said, well, you've never taken an algebra class, and if you said, well, still know algebra, like I just wouldn't believe you. And so we have made this at the no-brainer level. And we're specifically looking at you, the person who has not enrolled in anything. And I would just like you to consider that the damage of most of us not knowing how to do narrative shifting is being shown throughout the world today. This group is so different than that group, that's why we must kill them. Like, that's really not the truth. It's a narrative. And so learning how, I don't know how many people have said about the divisiveness in America. Like, what do we do about that? And really, a short answer is like, you're going to have to change your narrative. You're going to have to start looking at fellow Americans less like they're the enemies. I mean, some enemies are probably, people in positions of power, maybe. I don't know. But your fellow Americans are probably not your enemies. Probably not. And yeah, it's pretty easy to get pulled into a lot of hate and all of that hate. So let me explain how the narrative of or how the feeling of hate happens. because there's a narrative that you are very different from me, and how you are very different from me is that you don't want the things I want, but you do want to take the things I have, and therefore I'm going to hate you. And uh, first of all, it does make sense under those circumstances if that was true to hate somebody, but what if that's just a narrative and those things aren't true? And what if what is actually true is that people are frightened and they don't know? I did a 3-week trip this summer, and I went through, I'm not sure how many states, but well, I could figure it out. Um, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. There were stops in most of these places. Indiana, Ohio, New York, couple of 3 places in New York, New Hampshire, Maine, Maryland, Virginia, New Jersey, um, where else? Tennessee, and then back up through Illinois. Stops in those places. And somebody asked, like, well, what was it like? And because I know I'm going to be asked that question, I always come up with, like, what is a good summary statement? Just sort of thinking. And what I thought with the entire experience was that people were muted. We weren't talking with each other. People were talking quietly. Why? People don't have strong opinions? No, there's so much fear because, the other is somebody I should be afraid of. But that's a narrative. I've traveled, I counted this, it's at least 22 countries, and I don't know any English other than, broken American English. And it is the same. you know, Politics, and there's a lot of differences and a lot of cool cultural differences in countries, but the basic, like who we are as human beings and what we need is universal, and what we want is universal. And the narrative that there's not enough for everybody and people are trying to take yours is a narrative. And learning how to shift that. And look, that is such a powerful and such a strong narrative that I think it is impossible to shift on your own. I think a narrative that there isn't enough, and that's why we have to fight so much for what is ours. It's just a narrative. And if you say, like, no, it's not really true, well, let me throw some stats at you. And if you have a hard time believing these, then that's the point. The point is the narrative is stronger than the facts because narratives are stronger than facts. So here's one. If we've all 8 billion of us lived in Texas, we would all have every single one of us, 924, I think it is, square feet to ourselves. A family of 4 would have, over 3,600 square feet. We don't all want to live in Texas, but that's how much land there is in Texas. So the idea that there isn't enough space on the planet, if we look at all of the inhabitable places on the planet, it's something like 3.5 acres per person. There's plenty of land. What about water? If there was no refilling of the Great Lakes, which is where most of the fresh water on the planet lives, we would each be able to drink 1 gallon of water, all of us on the planet, 1 gallon of water for 2,000 years. Then you're going to say, like, yeah, but that's fresh water. And how do you get it? Exactly, it's distribution. But what if I said this? Well, the oceans are pretty abundant. In fact, for every gallon in the Great Lakes, there's 59,000 gallons in the ocean. So it does make sense to think about desalination, right? Indeed. What's it cost to desalinate enough water for a gallon a day for a single person for a year? And the answer is somewhere between 52 cents and $2. That's per year. Enough water per year for everybody on the planet for $2 or under. Everybody. There's enough water. Um, what about enough jobs? In this country, most people are employed. I mean, and I'm not trying to make light of unemployment because really one of the worst summers of my life, I was unemployed and it was a really nice summer I hated. It was terrible. Unemployment is miserable, no question. Um, but even if you look at, this idea that, well, one of the problems is nobody wants to work. That's a scarcity narrative. The typical American who is working is bringing in 186 comma 000 for the company they're working for. That is a typical person. Now that, people are making a median income is 62,000. But the typical, I mean, somebody who works full time as a barista at Starbucks makes around 30 grand. So is what we have here is we have narratives that keep us from being imaginative, that keep us from being exploratory and keep us from experimenting and keep us. And now you're going to say, like, okay, but I'm pretty good at all those. Unless you have learned specifically how to do narrative shifting, you don't know how to do it. That is the truth. Now, we put the topic together to be one that we thought people would, but this challenge is aimed at you, person who has never enrolled in anything. It would just, I thought, how do we create something and make it an absolute no-brainer? So now the only thing that is keeping you from enrolling is your narrative. And I'll bet it's your narrative that you already know how to do it, which I will arm wrestle you and I will win because you probably don't know. It's like algebra. It's not hard, but it's not easy. It's hard to learn algebra on your own, especially if you didn't buy an algebra textbook, which is there a narrative textbook out there? No, there is not. There are textbooks on persuasion. So people who are persuading you that there isn't enough on the planet, they've probably read textbooks about how to get you to change the narrative to their narrative. What we do here is not get you to change your narrative to my narrative. It's to teach you what I know about how to do narrative shifting so that you can shift it. Can you imagine how quickly we would solve every single problem in America? And this would spread if all 330 million of us in America loved all 330 of us in America. Just imagine that for a while. Could we figure out healthcare if we all loved each other? Could we figure out quality jobs for everybody? Could we figure out border issues if we all loved each other? If our narrative shifted to, you are a quality human being. I might not know you, but I know one thing about you. Your goals are my goals. Your universal desires are my universal desires. Couldn't we be creative enough? So I don't know what your reason for not having enrolled in the one chain or the Closer in Seven challenge, but please, please write it down. Write down, this is why I'm not doing it. If it's time, I mean, it's 10 minutes a day. If at the most, it'll take you 15. The changes that I'm going to recommend, they're things that you weave into what you're already doing. These are not additional things. Maybe a little bit additional, but they're not much. Um, the money at $7. I mean, I don't know about you. If you put all that time and money together, this is a guarantee in my life. In my life, I'm going to waste $7 next week for sure on something that's not going to make my life better. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to probably waste 90 minutes next week on something that, even as I'm doing it, I know it's not going to make my life any better. Like, if you're like me, you're probably going to do that same thing. Um, if you think like, well, I already know how to do it, again, I'm just going to have you write down, where did you learn it? How did you learn it? Can you say these are the 9 steps to narrative shifting? Okay, you can do this. You're going to meet very cool people. I gotta tell you, the people who are interested in doing some of the people who've enrolled, I already know they know how to do narrative shifting because they've been in classes of mine. Why are they here? They want to learn more. I mean, if you're good in algebra, you know that calculus is right behind, and it's also an amazing tool. And you're going to say not for the average person. Well, okay, let's talk about geometry. You need that if you're remodeling a house. No, I don't. I did mine without. Yeah, but I bet it would have gone smoother. Look at people who really know what they're doing about remodeling houses. They're using geometry all the time. They're using math all the time. Come on, take a chance on me. Take a chance on this. Take a chance on yourself. If there's pride in the picture, just swallow a little bit of it. This is not going to stretch you too much, enough for you to get a noticeable result in 7 days. And my whole point, yes, it's that particular result I want for you, but more, I want you to really experience the power of narrative shifting and learning how to do a little bit of it and learning how, there are tweaks you can make. There are tweaks you can make. But you should enroll, and you should learn the whole thing. You should do the 10 to 15 minutes of work every day, whatever it is. It won't take you that long. Some people will spend longer than that because they'll get into it and they will like it. You're gonna like the people in the community. It's always, I mean, many of our clients become good friends. I mean, with each other and also with me because they're cool. All right, there's an enrollment link here. Just click it. All right.